Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review for you all, so I'm back. Hopefully you didn't miss me too much, and hopefully this movie review is going to be interesting to you. So today we're going to be reviewing a movie from the United States. It's a horror film, English language. This actually hasn't been released yet, so I'm going to count it as 2023 because I'm assuming it's going to be released very soon. Directed by Sean Robinson, and this film is called Life of Belle. So Life of Belle is about a young girl named Belle. She wants to be an internet superstar, kind of like those really popular YouTube channels featuring children. And so her father gets her a video camera. So her video camera is the start of her project. We're introduced to her brother, her mother and father, and a beautiful home that she lives in. But the more we get an insight into the family's routine, the more we realize things are far from perfect. In fact, there is very strange behavior within this family that indicates that danger might be lurking. So whether or not the family passed the point of no return is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Life of Belle. I came into this movie both excited and very skeptical. Skeptical because this is a micro-budget horror film. So with micro-budget, more often than not, the budget constraints really get in the way of enjoying the experience. Whether the director tries something too extravagant or the script and the acting just isn't good enough. I feel very bad for criticising these types of movies, and so I steer clear of these for the most part. But when I realised that this was a found footage horror film, I thought, I'm going to give this a shot, because I'm a massive fan of found footage horror, and if micro budget succeeds, more often than not it's in the found footage subgenre. This is a subgenre that micro budget can get away with, because the whole idea of found footage is to give the impression that it's a video camera that's been found. Everyday family recording their day-to-day life. Micro budget really works, and so I thought, all right, well, maybe this is a film that will get away with that micro budget because it's based on a very self-aware level. So coming into it with limited expectations, I was expecting it to be a very generic horror film, a horror film that does copy and regurgitates the success of Blair Witch and Paranormal Activity, but I had my fingers crossed that maybe it was going to be something a little bit different. Recently, I have seen a few found footage horror films that are micro budget that have been fairly decent. So with that coming into Life of Belle, not knowing exactly what to expect, I came away from this movie actually quite impressed at how much the director managed to create out of nothing. So yes, it is a micro budget horror film, but if you are a found footage fanatic, then this is a movie I would definitely recommend, because it actually produces something different, and that is a breath of fresh air. As I said earlier, with their world that is so regurgitating so much generic material, you add it to the ever-growing list of disposable horror films. I believe that this movie, although it does have its issues, it's still worth the effort because it's something a little bit different. This is the director who's putting his neck on the line because he's creating a shadow of his own, and if it doesn't work, it's going to come back on him, but it doesn't really seem to faze him. And so he's made a film in this regard that's up to interpretation, whether you want to take a paranormal road or a road that is much more realistic, and I thought that much more realistic interpretation to the film gave it a relatability, and so that I actually thought really worked. And this is the reason why I would say go out there and see it. This is a film that doesn't have any jump scares, which I thought was the most surprising aspect. This is a movie that does not have any laziness. It actually wants to create tension within this family, and the events that occur within this family I thought were very creepy, and they were very slow burn. And so there's a certain level of patience to this movie that I wasn't expecting, because it's so easy just to make cattle prod horror. Paranormal Activity to me is one of the most laziest films out there, because it's all about the bigger budget, the jump scares, the cattle prod horror, not necessarily scaring you. It's more a case of shocking you, like basically prodding you with that cattle prod. But this movie doesn't have that cattle prod. This movie wants to give you the impression that it's an everyday family, and the fact that this cast have never acted before gave you that sense of realism that you've actually found this footage. And so I thought that really worked. And so the really small budget and the lack of experience I actually thought worked as a positive in this movie. And so as the situation starts to spiral, I thought the relationship between the main character Belle and her brother, who I'm led to believe actually real brother and sister, and I thought that chemistry was there. And so the fact that this is a real family, I thought, all right, the chemistry is there, and so I actually believed what was going on. And so that was all very, very good. And so you do have that slow creeping tension that is very subtle, it's very natural, and it's not trying too hard. And so you have a movie that basically has nothing behind it, but it's created with passion. It's created with that genuine sense that it wants to be a film, as opposed to just copying something that's being successful, copying something that basically allows a film to hide in its shadows. And if you haven't got a movie that's hiding in the shadows, it becomes very forgettable. But this movie, although it does have its issues, I still thought as though it was very brave filmmaking. So there are some moments that I thought really worked. There were some very creepy moments. And as I said, going on the ride with Belle, I thought was the film's biggest plus, because I felt like it was a movie that was very psychological, and it was actually very thought-provoking, because on one sense you have a realistic portrayal of a family and issues facing this family, but on the other hand, if you want to treat it as a paranormal film, there is enough evidence to suggest that that's exactly what you're going for. And so the interpretation, I thought, was a welcome surprise, and it gives the movie an entity of its own. And so, yes, the movie is not perfect. It's not a movie that's going to win people over. So if you're a found footage skeptic and you're not really won over by it, this is a film that's not really going to do it for you. But if you are a found footage fanatic, this is proof that you don't need a massive budget to make an enjoyable horror experience. And so I actually believed what was going on, and for the most part, I really enjoyed it. If I have issues with this movie, some of the script was here and there. It was a little bit off-putting in some instances. I saw some of the acting was a little bit off-putting, but again, that was down to the fact that the script wasn't as polished as it really should have been. And so I will say that the script is the biggest weakness to this movie, but pushing that aside, it doesn't really get in the way of enjoying a movie that goes by before you know it. It's only about 70 odd minutes, and so it knows exactly what it wants to do. It wants to be a fun horror film, but again, another horror film that you really hadn't seen too much before. So overall, not a perfect film, but as far as found footage horror films are concerned, it's very watchable. And if it sounds like your kind of thing, I would highly recommend you go out there and see it. I'm going to give Life of Belle 3 stars. All right, guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.